How do organisms achieve their basic form? That is to ask, how does a single fertilized egg become an elephant, a tiger, a human, or any of the numerous other kinds of animals and plants that we see around us? In the following video, at the 1 minute mark, Douglas Axe states, the mere fact that a firefly comes from a single cell that then develops into a firefly puts it in a completely different league from an iPhone. That doesn't happen with smartphones. Factories make smartphones. Fireflies come from fireflies and come from an initial fertilized egg. It is absolutely mind-boggling. We have no idea how a single cell produces an adult. These things are marvelous. And in the following video at the 7.5 minute mark, Alexander Sierras states, the magic of the mechanisms inside each genetic structure saying exactly where that nerve cell should go, the complexity of these, the mathematical models on how these things are indeed done are beyond human comprehension. Even though I am a mathematician, I look at this with the marvel of how do these instruction sets not make mistakes as they build what is us. It's a mystery, it's magic, it's divinity. It is safe to say that nobody really knows how an organism achieves its basic form. In the following article, Michael Denton remarks that to date, the form of no individual cell has been shown to be specified in detail in a genomic blueprint. And in the following article entitled, How do rod-like bacteria control their geometry? In the concluding paragraph of the article, the authors conceded that we are still far from unraveling the fundamental engineering challenges that biology has to overcome in shaping single cells as well as multicellular tissues. And in the following study, the researchers fully expected to confirm a widely held belief backed by strong theoretical predictions that the shape and motility of bacteria had co-evolved. Yet, the researchers remarked, to our great surprise, we didn't find any association between the two traits. In short, molecular biologists don't even understand how a single cell might achieve its basic form, much less do they understand how a multicellular organism might achieve its basic form. This failure of Darwinian evolution, particularly this failure of the reductive materialism upon which Darwinian evolution is based, to be able to explain the basic form of any particular organism occurs at a very low level. In the following article entitled, Quantum Physics Problem Proved Unsolvable, which studied the derivation of macroscopic properties from a complete microscopic description, the researchers remarked that even a perfect and complete description of the microscopic properties of the material is not enough to predict its macroscopic behavior. The researchers further commented that their findings challenged the reductionist point of view, as the insurmountable difficulty lies precisely in the derivation of macroscopic properties from a microscopic description. Darwinists hold that the basic form of an organism is achieved by mutations to DNA. Yet, as Jonathan Wells states in the following article, studies using saturation mutagenesis in the embryos of fruit flies, roundworms, zebrafish, and mice also provide evidence against the idea that DNA specifies the basic form of an organism. Biologists can mutate, and indeed have mutated, a fruit fly embryo in every possible way, and they have invariably observed that only 3 possible outcomes: a normal fruit fly, a defective fruit fly, or a dead fruit fly. In the following video, at the 6-minute mark, Stephen Meyer states that you can mutate DNA indefinitely, 80 million years, 100 million years, till the cows come home. It doesn't matter, because in the best case, you're just going to find a new protein someplace out there in that vast combinatorial sequence space. You are not, by mutating DNA alone, going to generate higher order structures that are necessary to building a body plan. And here is an excellent PowerPoint presentation by Dr. Jonathan Wells, starting around the 15-minute mark, showing that the central dogma of Darwinian evolution, which simply stated is DNA makes RNA, makes protein, makes us, showing that that is incorrect at every step. Besides DNA sequences failing to explain the basic form of an organism, protein sequences also fail to explain their basic form. The following article reveals that the same sequence of amino acids can be folded differently to produce proteins with different three-dimensional shapes. Conversely, proteins with different amino acids can be folded to produce similar shapes and of genomes themselves are not fixed, but they vary according to what context they are in. In particular, the following study found that the spatial organization of genomes is tissue specific. Moreover, to further drive the point home that the sequences in DNA cannot explain how any particular kind of organism achieves its basic form, In the following article, Dr. Jonathan Wells states, "I now know as an embryologist, tissues and cells, as they differentiate, modify their DNA to suit their needs. It's the organism controlling the DNA, not the DNA controlling the organism." Dr. James Shapiro weighs in here and states, "Research dating back to the 1930s has shown that genetic change is the result of cell-mediated processes, not simply accidents or damage to the DNA. The cell-active view of genome change applies to all scales of DNA sequence variation, from point mutations to large-scale genome rearrangement and whole genome duplications." And here's a particularly crystal clear example of an organism controlling the DNA and not the DNA controlling the organism, as is presupposed in Darwinian thinking. Specifically, a bacteria, after shattering its 3.2 megabit genome into 20 to 30 kilobit pieces, miraculously reassembles its genome such that only 3 hours later, fully reconstituted, non-rearranged chromosomes are present, and the cells carry on alive as normal. Moreover, in the following study, researchers implanted human embryonic neuronal cells into a mouse embryo. Yet the human neurons, despite having human DNA, had a mouse morphology. If DNA really ruled morphology, as Darwinists hold, we would have expected a human morphology, but we didn't see that. The following article notes that a brief time-lapse video can teach more about embryonic development than any amount of reading, and further notes that it is hard not to be impressed how a repeatable form reliably emerges despite considerable variation in both genes and environment. To further drive the point home that the basic form of any particular organism is not reducible to the material particulars of the organism, in the following article it is noted that Richard Lewontin once described how you can excise the developing limb bud of an amphibian embryo, shake the cells loose from each other, allow them to reaggregate into a random lump, and then replace the lump in the embryo. A normal leg develops. Somehow the form of the limb as a whole is the ruling factor, redefining the parts according to the larger pattern. Moreover, this, what can be termed positional information, which is not reducible to DNA sequences and which specifies the three-dimensional arrangement of the molecular components of the cell, is found to be enormous in its content, much greater than the sequential information, as great as that sequential information is that is encoded on DNA. For example, the information content that is found to be in a one-cell bacterium, when working from the thermodynamic perspective, is found to be 10 to the 12 bits, which is equivalent to 100 million pages of the Encyclopedia Britannica. In comparison, the largest libraries in the world have about 10 million volumes, or 10 to the 12 bits. And in the following video, it is noted that the information to build a human infant, atom by atom, would take up the equivalent of enough thumb drives to fill the Titanic, multiplied by 2,000. And the following video states that there are 10 to the 28 atoms in the human body. The amount of data contained in the whole human is 3.02 times 10 to the 32 gigabytes of information. Using a high bandwidth transfer, that data would take about 4.5 times 10 to the 18 years to teleport one time. That is 350,000 times the age of the universe. Moreover, we have fairly strong evidence indicating that this enormous amount of quote-unquote positional information, that is, telling all the atoms of the developing embryo exactly where to be, is not contained within the material particles of the developing embryo itself, outside the material realm. For instance, at about the 41-minute mark of the following video, Dr. Wells, by using a branch of mathematics called category theory, demonstrates that during embryological development, information must somehow be added to the developing embryo from the outside by some non-material method. To provide further evidence for information coming into the developing embryo from the outside, it is also important to note that quantum correlations somehow arise from outside space-time, in the sense that no story in space and time can describe them. And these quantum correlations, which somehow arise from outside space-time, are now found to be in molecular biology on a massive scale. They are found in every DNA and protein molecule, as these following references briefly touch on. As well, quantum criticality is now found to be in a wide range of important biomolecules. A fairly clear example of quantum effects being physically present in biology is in the following experiment, where DNA has been found to have a bizarre ability to pull itself together even at a distance, when according to known science it shouldn't be able to do this. Moreover, the following article points out that the unresolved enigma of protein folding, that is to say, the unresolved enigma for how a protein might achieve its basic form, can be easily explained if the process of folding is a quantum affair. In fact, in direct contradiction to Darwinian claims that hold information is merely a metaphor, information is now shown to be a physically real entity that is separate from matter and energy. A physical entity that has a quote-unquote thermodynamic content. A related note to information now being shown to have a thermodynamic content. In the following paper, Dr. Andy McIntosh who is professor of thermodynamics and combustion theory at the University of Leeds, holds that it must be non-material information that is constraining biological life to be so far out of thermodynamic equilibrium. Moreover, Dr. McIntosh holds that regarding information as independent of matter and energy resolves the thermodynamic issues and invokes the correct paradigm for understanding the vital area of thermodynamic organizational interactions. A particularly crystal clear example for demonstrating that immaterial information is its own distinct physical entity that is separate from matter and energy is quantum teleportation, where, as the following article highlights, the photons aren't disappearing from one place and appearing in another. It is only the information that gets teleported from one place to another. In fact, in quantum mechanics, it is information that is primarily conserved, not necessarily matter and energy that are primarily conserved, as matter and energy are primarily conserved in classical mechanics. As the following article states, in the classical world, information can be copied and deleted at will. In the quantum world, however, the conservation of quantum information means that information cannot be created nor destroyed. In fact, classical digital information has now been found to be a subset of this non-local quantum information by the following method. Moreover, quantum entanglement is a physical resource which can be used as a quantum information channel to perform computational and cryptographic tasks that are impossible for classical systems. In fact, since the quantum computation that is apparently going on in life, such as solving the traveling salesman problem that is central to the unresolved enigma of protein folding, since the quantum computation that is apparently going on in life easily outclasses anything that man has thus far accomplished in his best efforts at building a quantum computer, the following researchers who studied the effects of quantum entanglement in DNA pointed out the obvious fact that utilizing biological molecules for quantum computation could greatly help man in his efforts to build a quantum computer. Specifically, they stated that the discovery of quantum states in protein DNA complexes opens up the tantalizing possibility that these systems might be candidates for quantum computation. Moreover, besides widespread quantum effects being found on the molecular level of biological systems, there's also some fairly compelling evidence that quantum effects must be at play on the macro level of organisms as well. For instance, the following article notes that research has shown that humans can detect the presence of a single photon. The researcher notes his surprise at this finding and states, the response that the photon generates survives all the way to the level of our awareness, despite the ubiquitous background noise. any man-made detector would need to be cooled and isolated from noise to behave the same way. As well, in the following article, it is noted that multi-electrode recordings have revealed zero time lag synchronization among remote cerebral cortical areas. Moreover, further evidence suggesting that quantum mechanisms are at play on the macro level of the human body is also revealed in the following article, where it is revealed that a subject perceives a sensory stimulus on the skin at the moment the skin is touched, before the stimulus reaches the brain and before full deliberative consciousness occurs. Another fairly strong piece of evidence indicating that quantum mechanisms must be at play on the macro level of biological organisms, and that it must be non-material information that is constraining biological life to be so far out of thermodynamic equilibrium, is found with what is termed quarter power scaling. In particular, quarter power scaling reveals that although living things occupy a three-dimensional space, their internal physiology and anatomy operate as if they were four-dimensional. Of final note, besides quantum information providing direct empirical falsification of neo-Darwinian claims that say information is emergent from a material basis, the implication of finding non-local, beyond space and time, and conserved quantum information in molecular biology on such a massive scale is fairly and pleasantly obvious. That pleasant implication, of course, being the fact that we now have direct physical evidence strongly indicating that we do indeed have an eternal soul that is capable of living beyond the death of our material bodies. As Stuart Hameroff notes in this following video, the quantum information isn't destroyed. It can't be destroyed. It's possible that this quantum information can exist outside the body, perhaps indefinitely, as a soul. Thus, in conclusion, the reductive materialistic framework of Darwinian evolution is found to be grossly inadequate for explaining how any particular organism might achieve its basic form. Moreover, to state what should be glaringly obvious, since neo-Darwinian explanations are grossly inadequate for explaining how any particular organism might achieve its basic form, then of course neo-Darwinian speculations for how one type of organism might transform into another type of organism are based on pure fantasy, and they have no discernible experimental basis in reality. Whereas, on the other hand, theism, especially with these recent breakthroughs in quantum biology, is found to be very well supported experimentally in its claim that God, who is beyond space and time, is somehow forming us, in each of us, in our mother's womb. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. And again, I remind viewers that all videos and papers referenced in this video may be accessed in the link that is provided in the video description. Thanks again for watching.